In my defense, this is all that I do in an English major.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, I remember not the semester I just finished, the one before that, I took a mythology class, and part of, like, our kind of final paper was to take, like, a traditional story, myth, fairy tale, whatever, and then analyze a modern adaptation of it. And we were originally supposed to come up with, like, 4 different ideas. The paper I wrote about was looking at Hymn to Demeter, which is the Persephone story, Beauty and the Beast, and then the book series of Court of Thorns and Roses, which is a synthesis of the 2 stories. Another idea I had was to take the original Carmilla novel and compare it to this modern YouTube series and talk about how...
Would that have counted as a mythology thing, though?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Continue.
Yeah, but yeah, kind of the thing I wanted to do with that is just like how LGBT representation has evolved over the years, because I learned this from another professor who's like, she's a grad student studying horror, and like basically like all the monsters are just like things we don't want to accept in society, like vampires, Victorian era sex. That's literally all they are.
And I mean, I don't know how true this is, but it makes sense. Like, one of the original coining for the term of vampirism was used as a metaphor for being raped, because that was back when they blamed the rape victim rather than the rapist.
No, absolutely.
You see, something I liked, I mean, I know this isn't going to be in an episode, but I still want to say something I did really like about Valentine when she pointed out, when Abby was like, isn't Dead or Alive Extreme a lesbo game? And she pointed out, it's like, no, it's a FAP game for boys. It's just the girls are put in skimpy outfits, rubbing each other up and down. So it's like, it's softcore lesbian porn, even if it's not a lesbian game. So, I mean, I know that's kind of veering off topic, but I still felt it was, I mean, in regards to the LGBT representation.
Yeah, because there is definitely a difference between representing the LGBT community and fetishizing them.
Because, I mean, Knights of Azure, even though there's plenty of fan service in the game, it's probably my favorite representation of a lesbian relationship in a video game. Because even though, like, Dragon Age 2, the lesbian romances were good, but that's because all the romances were written to be gender neutral.
Yeah.
So, objectively, that was the best one. But because it wasn't specifically designed for 2 women, in Mass Effect 3, and I will say, once I played the Citadel DLC, which you didn't get a chance to play because I never downloaded it, Specialist Trainer didn't... To me, Specialist Trainer she was a lesbian. That was her character. That's why she existed. They fleshed her out a lot more, in my opinion. I mean, it's still there, but it comes across less as a lesbian fetish character and a lesbian who's very comfortable in her sexuality. But Sarah from Dragon Age Inquisition, I think she's a fun character. She's a good BFF, but now she's not the only character that you can see naked in the game. You can see, I think, a grand total of 3 or 4. But you don't get to see the 2 male characters, like the one gay romance. You don't get to see them naked together. You most certainly get to see the main female character and Sarah naked in bed together. So to me, that just really can't... Even if the rest of the relationship is okay from what I've seen, I haven't seen it. I haven't played through it just because I was initially just watching the romance scenes to kind of decide what I wanted to do. It felt like they were fetishizing it rather than representing it. The reason why I like Knights of Azure is, even though there is a lot of fan service, make no mistake of that, anytime the main character is spending time with the love interest and they're building upon it, and I mean, besides the love interest, them both having huge breasts and the love interest having a low-cut dress, besides that, their relationship is treated with respect. There's little to no fan service involved, and it's the focus of the story. So I didn't feel like it was being used as a fetish. It felt like, yeah, they're lesbians. Yeah, we'll exploit the sex appeal for men. But the relationship itself was treated with the proper respect it deserved. Mm-hmm. The sequel, on the other hand... Seriously, I played the sequel for 20 minutes. I'm like, well, fuck this game. This fucking sucks. Like, seriously, fuck it. Because, like I said, there is fan service in the first game. I am not going to say there isn't. But the romance is treated with respect. Not so much in the next one. There were, male supportive characters in the first game. Everyone's basically a woman in the second game. The sexualization is cranked up to the wazoo, to the point where there's a swimming pool in the hotel that you can visit now, and you can rent swimsuits that you can wear into combat. Just like it's now there's 5 different women, like 3 of them are all fighting for the affection of various characters. Like the fan service is cranked up to the wazoo. Because like for example, in the first game, you did end up wearing kind of a skimpy outfit while you were leveling up your powers. But the justification, and this is a weak justification, I acknowledge, is that you're in kind of a dreamlike state, and you're offering up the blood you collect to your sword, and you need to wear as little clothing as possible so it can leave your skin. That is a weak justification, and I'm calling it as what it is it's a fan service excuse. It's still a lot better than what the sequel did. Because the sequel drops some of the more interesting elements of the first game, so instead you have to hook yourself up to a science machine to have the blood drained from you so it doesn't kill you, and then use it to upgrade your abilities. So the outfit they put you in there is a skin-tight, translucent outfit that just happens to have little bubbles on it, or little dots on it to hide the nipples, and other things like that. Like, you know, if you wanted to just have her naked and just have the bars cover it while they sucked it out, that would at least have more dignity and wouldn't be as stupid. Because I'm like, yes, in a non-mystical sense, I can definitely see the need for skin contact if you need to remove the blood from something. It makes sense in the universe, I promise.
I'll take your word. I take your word for it.
Yeah, Actually, Knights of Azure is a game I wanted us to play like the first hour of. It's too repetitive for the channel, make no mistake of that. Just because I really like the characters. The story's confusing and the gameplay is repetitive as hell, but I just really got invested in the characters and had so much fun with it. Why don't we turn that into a bonus episode for us? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, given the subject matter, it's a little touchy.
Yeah, because we're essentially 2 guys talking about women in video games.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I know that our opinions shouldn't be regarded as heavily as what other women should say.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like, well, I kind of feel that we need to at least put forth an understanding of the issues. And yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I especially just want to make sure that people know I'm not just a cliche pig in a sense, you know, because I always feel a little self-conscious admitting I like Red Sonja and other things that have fan service in it. I'm like, that's not why I like it, I swear.
I swear, there's something I want to say now. I can't think of what it is. You know, I think what a lot of it comes down to is like it's essentially the male gaze. It's like saying like what men want, because like like if you think the stereotypical like He-Man, which is like I guess a sexualized male character, that he really isn't sexualized for the woman. It is more the power fantasy for the men.
I mean, Linkara, swinging back to him, a lot of people will say, it's okay if women are in skimpy outfits. The men are in super, skin-tight outfit revealing every crack. But it's like, as you pointed out, that's not there for the woman's enjoyment. That's there for the men to, like you said, it's a power fantasy. So, I mean, quite frankly, I freaking love the Gerudos from Breath of the Wild because they're big and muscular.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the reasons why I really liked Red Sonja and Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, they might be in skimpy outfits, but they are buff. And even though they're not drawn that way on the covers because they need to look pretty on the covers, in the comics, they're ripped. Like, they're big, they're muscular, their proportions are not always designed to be sexy because an overly buff woman doesn't have that cliche.
Yeah. And I feel like that's definitely a step up from the stereotypical like model thin skimpy outfit, because like if you're going to portray like a woman who is physically strong, her body needs to reflect that.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I'm also just a little disappointed because like Watch Mojo did a list of like top 10 best female protagonists. Honestly, almost all of them I could call because I'm like, there are so few female protagonists out there that are good or just they're not very many in general. Because like the top 2, number 1 was Lara Croft and the other was Samus. Like, yeah, I mean, they'd have to take number 1 and 2 because they're the most famous out there.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, which I think is a testament to how good Horizon Zero Dawn is Aloy, the main character from that, took their 3rd spot.
I think I remember I did see this one.
Which I have to agree with because I'm like, yeah, she is a good character. And you know what I kind of like about her is that it's very clear she was always written to be a woman, but not in a, not in a, how do I put this? But outside of just certain interactions with some characters, like there's a king who gets attracted to her. I don't know. That's kind of a tricky one to say because it's very obvious this character was meant to be a woman and wasn't changed from a man at the last minute, but it still feels like, heck yeah, let's make a powerful woman rather than, let's make this powerful character a, because like take Toph from Avatar. I love Toph. She's a great female character, but she was originally going to be a man.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know how she shows in the play she's a big buff guy?
Yeah.
That's a reference to the fact that they originally planned on making Toph a big muscular man. Like, I know Azula was originally going to be an older brother rather than a twin sister or whatever. And I'm glad they made those changes.
Like
they don't feel that way if you don't know that. But like I said, it's very clear Aloy was meant to be a woman, and they put every respect to showcase that even though she's a woman, we're not going to focus on the fact that she's a woman outside of just some men would be attracted to her.
Yeah. I do believe that representation is super important, but at the same time, like, you can't get caught up in it, because if you do that, it's like, oh, what's this character? She's a woman.
Yeah.
That's her character. This character's black. That's his entire character.
You see, part of the reason why I really hated Rey I really don't like Rey in the Star Wars movies is, and make no mistake, I'm going to compare her to Luke here in just a second. But to me, she feels like she's filling the generic female role. Now let's rewind to like the 90s, 80s, and earlier. In media that's primarily appealing to men, let's take Power Rangers, for example. There always was the generic female character. Now, someone like Kimberly grew into her own because she was around longer than everyone else, but she originally filled the female character quota.
Yeah.
Same with Trini.
Yeah, the Smurfette principle, where there's group of men, one woman.
Yeah. So, because of that, women weren't really expected to have much personalities in the grand scheme of things. The problem I feel with Rey is it almost feels like she was written with that in mind, but because she's the female character, she's the main focus, I'm a lot less willing to let them get away with that. Which is why I feel in The Last Jedi, she actually works better as a protagonist because they added Rose. Now, I'm not a fan of Rose. Now, I liked Rose as a character. I just didn't like the romance between her and Finn that came out of nowhere. The reason why I thought that was a good idea, as well as showing a lot more women in the next movie, is because my brain was able to disassociate. And again, this is how I was raised, so I'm sure future generations won't have this problem. But I was able to disassociate the female, the generic female stereotype from the main lead, from Rey, and just kind of pass it off to these other characters. So I was able to accept Rey a bit more as the bland protagonist who saves the day. Because, like, let's go back to Luke Skywalker, like I mentioned. Luke Skywalker's a little bland and kind of annoying in the first movie.
He's literally a self-insert.
Yeah. But they had characters like Obi-Wan, Han Solo, and other male characters that distracted you from that. So, yeah. You could slip into the main male character, but it's the other people with the actual personality to get you going. Mm-hmm. The other reason why I'm a little more critical of Rey rather than Luke, and I mean, generic, I feel she got too powerful too quickly, but that's another, I could go for hours about that. It's that times have changed. When the first Star Wars movies came out, one, they were a milestone movie. Nothing was like that before.
Oh, yeah.
And two, we didn't expect anything from our action heroes at the time. Like, part of I think the reason why Bond was has been so popular for years is because, I mean, sure, he's borderline perfect up till the Daniel Craig series, but he had a suave personality. I mean, just look at the Terminator movies. Our hero for a while was an emotionless robot that just killed people. So we just didn't expect that from movies that were viewed as, just for men. But the fact of the matter is, I feel, because of movies like Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, we expect more from our action. I mean, I know Harry Potter's not technically an action movie, but we really do expect more from our media, especially since Star Wars is not a balls-to-the-wall dick flick movie anymore. Like, arguably, wouldn't say it was a dick flick, but it was more, this is for boys. Like, this is only something boys would enjoy.
Yeah.
It's like something like Pacific Rim, that's a dick flick. I don't expect anything from the characters. I'm just here to watch robots punch things. But that's not what Star Wars is. And because it's not the 70s, 80s, 90s anymore, I expect a more fleshed out protagonist. I have nothing against Daisy Ridley. Like, I think it's horrific what they did, what the fans did to her and to the actress who played Rose. But I hate her character. I really do.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where it'll go in the final movie.
I'm worried because I think because it's the same director as the first one, but not the second one. I'm worried he's trying to push the series back in the direction he wanted, rather than just rolling with it.
Yeah, that might be a problem.
Although, did you see the gift where it's like Kylo Ren is such a good villain because, and it lists off all the horrible things the fans did to the various people in the movies? Like, the actor who played young Anakin had to quit acting and has been in therapy most of his life. The guy who did Jar Jar nearly committed suicide, or he tried to commit suicide. George Lucas sold off the franchise because he was tired of dealing with it. Daisy Ridley and the actress of Rose had to delete all their social media. Like, the actor who played Finn got hate mail just for being cast. The joke is, Kylo Ren is the fans, because he's a whiny, petulant brat who's always dressing up like the previous generation. This is Disney's way of saying, this is you.
Yeah.
I mean, the
there are so many problems with fandoms in general, just feeling very entitled. And I feel like, I don't know how true this is, but I feel like Twitter does have a big part in this, because you literally have access to the creators. You can just spam ideas at them.
You see, for the record, I love social media. I love that we're more connected.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem is it's now allowed... Because, like, before, the reason why fandoms never exploded is people couldn't find people like themselves.
Yeah.
Now that people can, fandoms have exploded. We've got so many good conventions. The problem is now extremist dickweeds can now find each other with a click of a button.
And another problem is it's the anonymous... you can be anonymous online.
Anonymity.
Yeah, because, like, with the internet, you can just hide behind a mask and say whatever you want, whereas, like, I'm confident that most of these people who send these horrible, like, just disgusting messages online would never actually say that in person.
Yeah. There was actually, when I say I've been watching it slowly. I haven't really been able to get into it. But Netflix released an Ultraman anime based off the long-running Ultraman series. It's based on a manga or light novel, but I digress. An interesting tidbit is one of the aliens who showed up periodically over the first couple episodes, I think only like 4 episodes in, he's a big fan of a pop idol, and anytime someone posts something hateful, he actually goes and murders them.
Oh.
I'm like... Okay, that's actually kind of a modern problem that we have, and is kind of a interesting jab at it.
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like and a big problem that stems from, like, just kind of the toxic fandom culture is they don't necessarily understand what all goes into making a show. Like, I love Voltron Legendary Defender. The fandom is toxic. They're just the worst, and like, they were kind of... And what they don't understand is, like, the two main heads of Voltron Legendary Defender, they fought tooth and nail to get what LGBT representation they could. The problem is they were working with Voltron, which is, like, based off an anime, which was remade dozens of times, so there are literally, like... There are dozens of people who own part of Voltron.
I mean, it's the same problem that the Freddy vs. Krueger movie had and Alien vs. Predator had, is that you can have a good idea... But if you can't get every person who has their fingers in the pot somehow to sign off on it, you can't do it.
Yeah. And especially, there's another problem with, like, the fact that, specifically with this show, it is aimed for children.
Yeah.
And it's a Netflix show. Like, there are unfortunately, adults out there who don't want their children to see that. And I hate it, but they're still a company and they have to make money. And additionally, Netflix is worldwide, and there are countries that
don't allow that sort of thing.
No, so it's like, if we put this into our shows...
It can't be aired in this country.
Yeah, that's a lot. And, like, I still have issues with that, but at the end of the day, they still need to run their company.
Like, because here's an example, just kind of swinging back to AVP. A lot of people crucified the first AVP movie for being rated PG-13. The thing is, though, that was a condition that the studio who owned part of it had with the movie. Because it's like, this is a big gamble. We need to make sure it can reach as many people as we can in order to maximize our profits. Because again, it was a gamble. The director was not the best choice for the job, but...
Oh, and then I'm pretty sure it's the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
That just like the love triangle in the series wasn't originally supposed to be there. I think it was the agent or the editor was like, you need a love triangle in this so we can sell more. And like, nobody likes the love triangle.
It's been done I hate the love triangle. Like, okay, there is one modern exception to the love triangle that I'm okay with, and that's Lore Olympus. Primarily because Minth, the woman who's getting in the way of the relationship, she's a fully fleshed out character. Mm-hmm. She's not just the generic person you don't want the main character to be with. Yeah.
I'm sure there are...
Okay, there are others, but that's the most immediate example.
I can think of other ones. Just to quickly summarize, there's the Iron Fey trilogy where the second guy, when he realizes that the main girl is not going to be interested in him, he backs off completely. Mm-hmm. I like that. There's also the Dark Artifices love triangle. They end up in a polyamorous relationship.
I mean, the real frustration with, and this applies to the Hunger Games too, why it's so frustrating is an absurd level of naivete from the main lead. Just Twilight's another prime example of this. It's like, and the fact that the men aren't willing to own up to the fact that they could possibly be with someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, again, Twilight. The whole reason that love triangle is so frustrating is because Bella doesn't realize what she's doing to Jacob, or at the very least doesn't care. And he's refusing to accept that she could happily be with someone other than him. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, Edward's got his own problems, but as I haven't read the books, I've mostly just seen the Jacob stuff.
And I feel like another problem with
I've seen some of the movies, just for transparency's sake.
And I feel like another problem with love triangles is there's almost always too much emphasis on the love triangle when, like, the world is literally ending. Like, there's another love triangle that I enjoy from... I think the book series is called The Girl at Midnight. I need to double check, but because, like, main character, she was, like, dating this guy beforehand, then she, like, meets this other guy, and it's, like, there's, like, kind of a soulmate thing going on between her and this other guy. Mm-hmm. And when they kind of meet together, it's like, hey, I know it's kind of weird what's going on, but the world is literally ending outside. We should deal with that first.
Kind of just swinging back to fandoms a little bit. I know that this is me waving my hipster card around, but I very much don't like being members of big mainstream fandoms because, quite frankly, I feel that they've ruined a lot of things for me. Like, just as an example, I loved playing Smite. As soon as it went out of beta and anyone could play it, it became unplayable because of the toxic community. I know it's not a great example, so let me go with another example. I liked Marvel when it first came out. The problem with it is especially with something that is an adaptation of things, you get the diehard purist, which admittedly I was for a while. You get the people who are like, oh, forget the comic books, the movies are better. And this also applies to other forms of media, especially Game of Thrones, because I was trying to talk to a coworker about the books, and this one asshole coworker from another department that everyone hates just came and was like, the book, don't bother reading the books, the show is better. I'm like, look, you can like one better or another, and I'm even willing to admit, I think the Aquaman movie is better than a lot of the comics, because the Aquaman movie actually fleshed out some elements from the comics that aren't properly utilized. Like the Seven Kingdoms, they're mentioned in the book. The comics have never really done anything with them. So the fact that the movie did, I'm actually kind of happy with that. But it's an adaptation fail. But again, that's not me saying I think the movie's better than the comics, because there's plenty of stuff in the comics that's not in the movie that I'm like, that's a lot cooler.
My personal view on adaptations is you really have to view them as something different, because, I mean, like, at the end of the day, they are different mediums, and by necessity can't tell the same kind of stories.
Now, I will make a counter argument to that a little bit. Like, part of the reason why I hate Teen Titans Go is because it's a double adaptation. It's an adaptation of a show that was an adaptation of a beloved show that was an adaptation of a beloved comic series. and the characters don't even remotely, because like the original show took liberties with some of their characters, but in the case of Cyborg, he didn't have a personality prior to the show. The reason why I'm so harshly critical of Teen Titans Go is they don't even resemble their original show personalities. And like there's an episode specifically dedicated to them trying to erase all other superheroes so they can be the only ones. Like, Robin would not do that to Batman. That is, like, so offensive to his character. And as someone who loves Dick Grayson, like, Dick Grayson was one of my 2 superhero idols as a kid. It was Captain America and Dick Grayson. That just really rubs me the wrong way. Because I'm just looking at it, I'm like, why didn't you make a TV show about Ambush Bug, Plastic Man on a superhero team? They would do crap like that. And their personalities are goofy and zany enough that it takes very little tweaking to make them fit this new format. So in a case like that, and this isn't just for Teen Titans Go, this goes for movies too that take a book's name and then completely change it. You're trying to take something that's more popular than what you would be able to accomplish on your own and steal its name in order to maximize your profits, you know, regardless of the respect for the source material. Now, like you said, viewing things on their own, let's take Infinity War. That's not a particularly good adaptation of the source material, but to be fair, they made Thanos a much more credible character by dropping the Lady Death thing. I'm a little disappointed because I like that as an idea, but again, that's just an example. Whereas, part of the reason why I like the Shazam movie, and I hold that it's probably the best superhero movie I've seen in almost 10 years, is out, and this is actually kind of the things that go into making movies and TV shows. The main villain in the Shazam movie is Dr. Sivana. He has no superpowers at all in the comics, but he has superpowers in the movies. The reason for that is the movie was originally written with Black Adam as the main villain, but because they had The Rock set to play him, and the Black Adam is such a popular character in the comics, they elected, let's bank on both those popularity factors and give him his own movie instead. The problem is, again, script was written with Black Adam in mind, so they made up a way for Dr. Sivana to have superpowers, so they wouldn't have to start completely from scratch. And honestly, it works. It does pay adequate respect to the source material, while still including so much from the comics that many others would leave out because they deemed it as too silly.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of leads back to kind of like part of the this is a business that needs to make money is why we're like almost everything Hollywood and like even in writing there's a lot of like fairy tale adaptations going on. This is going on because they need to sell stuff that they know is going to sell. Like,
and I mean, because I don't outright hold that against big businesses because they need to make money.
Yeah.
It's just when they put like the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, they were so dead set on making a franchise to make a butt ton of money. They didn't stop to make what was there good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Another thing, it kind of stifles creativity. I remember like a while ago, I read an article a friend shared about the problem with Broadway now is like all the big shows are like the SpongeBob musical and Frozen. They're like these commercialized things that are going to sell because they still need to make money, but they're not doing anything creative with it. And I feel like that's kind of it's stifling a lot of potential creativity. And I'm not saying that you cannot be creative with adaptations. Like you definitely can, but there's just something that you are never going to be able to get with an adaptation that a completely original thing does.
It's just the downside is you're not guaranteed to have people willing to come see your movie or show or whatever if it's completely original. Kind of, speaking of making money, I know a lot of people mocked it, but let's take the 2017 Power Rangers movie. A lot of people criticized the Krispy Kreme product placement. To be perfectly frank, I thought it was kind of funny. I liked the fact that they knew they had to do it, so they ran with it in such a way it was funny. Plus, I mean, just think about it. If it's something that's been buried on the planet for millions of years or since the planet existed, of course there's going to be a building built on top of it at some point.
Yeah.
Just because it's not a generic office building doesn't mean it's like it's entirely plausible someone could build a McDonald's over it. I mean, granted, the line about it must be a special place then, and the bit with Rita eating a donut, not being so, I thought that was funny.
It also, it goes back to the fact that, like, a lot of us just don't know everything that goes into the creative process, like the product placement.
Here's another example, Power Rangers related. In Forever Red, the 10th anniversary episode where every single Red Ranger, except for one, because he wasn't available for shooting, came back and reprised their roles. The episode ends with the current one taking a magic motorcycle and ramming it down Serpentera's throat, and that's how the fight ends. And a lot of people were ticked off, myself included, because it was anticlimactic, especially when they wanted to have a full-on fight with every Megazord in this series against Serpentera. The problem is, Disney would not give them the money for it, because they're like, you already did a two-part, team up with the Time Force Rangers. We're not giving you more money to do another expensive crossover. So they had to go to whoever was in charge of making the toys to get the rest of the money to finish it. But they only gave them enough money to finish one episode because it was going to be a two-parter. And the requirement was they had to promote a new toy. Hence the magic motorcycle.
Or like Tales of Zestiria. I haven't played it, but Luke has. He's told me that it fails because like they've been working on it for like 10 plus years.
Yeah, that's what... Okay, the 10 years is information I got from someone else. I could be wrong, but it was in development for a long time.
Yeah, and then Luke told me that it kind of flops because at the very last minute, they were told to do some rewrites. It's like,
yeah. Now, that's something I did confirm, is that the plot was changed late into the development cycle.
And, like, if you didn't know that, you would think it was like, this is just a terrible product. And, like, while it is, from what you've told me, it is still bad, there is a reason behind it.
Because, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but they really promoted the character Alicia, only to find out that she disappears about 10 hours into the game, and then only rejoins briefly, kind of like Kratos does. And unlike Kratos, there isn't a way of getting her back during the end game. So she's absent, and the reason for that is they wanted to promote a DLC episode all about her. Problem is, the DLC episode wasn't very good, so it's very obvious that I'm pretty sure this was forced on them. Especially since the character who replaces her is just not an interesting character. It's like she's just not developed very well at all. And the funny thing is the Tales of Zestiria anime fixes that. They let Alicia stick around, they let her be part of the main narrative, and you can kind of tell this... I'm pretty sure this was a big part of these forced rewrites.
A lot of stuff that goes into the creative process.
Yeah.
And we ranted about that. How long have we been ranting?
About 40 minutes, I think.
Oh, Kendall, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I think part of the reason I let it go is because I'm actually a little interested. If this sounds okay, Sunshine, is this something you might be interested in doing some more for the channel? Just
maybe.
Sharing our thoughts on various things and just... I mean, yes, I know it's another thing to be ripping off from the McElroys, but quite frankly, I think we bounce ideas off each other pretty well. Here, let's do an NSYNC, because we need to get going.
Yeah.